listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
Welcome to another edition of the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. I'm your host, Femi Abebefe. As always, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Our producer, Andre Paraiso, filling in for our guy, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. And Michael, we talked about it earlier this week on the pod. Bo Nix, his stock was going up for the Denver Broncos after what we saw this past Sunday in their second preseason game. And Sean Payton said, hey, let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and announce that Bo Nix will be QB1 and starting as a rookie for the Denver Broncos when they play the Seattle Seahawks in week 1 of the regular season.
Yeah, no real surprise here, right? I mean, I think when Sean Payton turned that card in, and he went through it in detail over on The Athletic and talked about how, he knew what he was seeing. He wanted them. And now he's built an offense around him. And certainly there's going to be mistakes. And, first game against Mike McDonald and all those, understanding his pressures and understanding who's the Mike call and who's the Will, all that stuff will be complicated. But look, they're often running. I mean, we could potentially have, Femi, no one said that 4 would get picked in the draft. We like the over in the number. It came through. And 4 might start this opening season. We know J.J. McCarthy's not going to start. We know Michael Penix is like Cameron's car in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, his buddy's car, because he's just going to sit in the garage all day and just wait, not even play in the preseason. We've seen enough. It's okay.
We've seen enough.
We've seen enough.
Enough of Mike.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll tell you about that Falcon team. They think they're really good. They just signed A.J. Terrell to $81 million contract extension. Yeah. I mean, they think they're really good, but we don't want to go there on this pod. So. Look, I think it was a foregone conclusion when he drafted him. He was going to start Bo Nix. But remember, as I said last week on the pod, he's going to manage them. Mm-hmm. And manage is not a negative term when it comes to quarterbacks. Manage is a good term. He's going to do what he does well. He's going to put him in great situations. He's going to struggle in September, and he's going to get better in October and November and December. I wrote a column this week on VSiN, and I'd love to hear your commentary on it. Like, how are the Raiders one game better than the Broncos? Now, I understand the Broncos are. Can you imagine the Broncos are 1-9 against the Raiders?
That's crazy.
Think about this: the Broncos won. I think they won 8 games last year. They were 8-9. Yeah, they were 8-9 last year, and they and in the top of the draft order, they lost to Washington, the 2nd pick overall. They lost to New England, the 3rd pick overall, and they lost to the Jets, wherever the hell they were picking. I mean, think about that. They won 8 games and lost to 3 bad teams.
It's pretty crazy. But I think that we talked about it on the last pod, and I said, hey, there's no way that the Broncos, that should be flipped. The Broncos should have a higher win total than the Raiders. So we encourage everyone to go ahead and read it. VSiN.com. Michael went ahead and wrote this. He writes a weekly column all throughout the regular season. But you talked about how there's finding value with the Denver Broncos, and we discussed this. I forgot the name of the beat reporter that we had on the Lombardi line a couple of weeks ago, but he said that they're stronger in the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line, they're stronger. They're going to be more physical. Sean Payton's a really good head coach. I think we forget that just because of what we saw last year and towards the end of the time in New Orleans, and then he had that stint doing TV, we forget that this guy's won a lot of football games. He's never had a win total like this of 5. He just has to win 6 to go over. Sean Payton's a good enough coach to where I'm pretty comfortable saying that he can at least win 6 games, even though he has a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. And we're starting to see sort of the turn with Bo Nix in terms of public perception. I think the preseason and the reports that have come out, people are starting to kind of turn a little bit, because when you got drafted 12th, everyone said, how could you do this? And now I'm seeing NFL Network talk about, could he be the offensive rookie of the year? So the public perception is starting to turn a little bit before we've even seen him play an actual regular season game.
Well, that's why you can't listen to the noise. I mean, basically you're being judged. The people that have the report cards are not the teachers. They're the students. So the students are grading the teachers when it comes to the draft. Like, nobody has as much information on. First of all, if you sat 5 of those draft experts down and told them to explain all the things a quarterback has to do in Sean Payton's offense, they wouldn't be able to tell you 5 things. So they're scouting blindly. It's not fair to them. They have to put their name on the line because these websites want mock drafts. They want, they want to have an order, and certainly you want to evaluate. But if you don't understand what they're being asked to do, if you don't understand how the game is being taught to the quarterback, it's hard to judge. And you didn't interview the quarterback. You don't know his character. Look, you want to blame Gussie Malzahn for the shitty offense at Auburn? Yeah, I do. I mean, you can't play quarterback. That's a high school passing game. That's what it is. It's always been. He can run the football effectively. It's kind of interesting, and hopefully he's successful at Central Florida doing it. But in terms of a pro style attack, I think Sean knows what he's looking for. And you're right. Like, when is he, like, even though they had a zillion cap troubles and they had, a lot of injuries, Sean would always find a way to win games in New Orleans. He's going to find a way to win. They gave up 70 points in a game last year in week 3 and came back and beat Buffalo in Buffalo.
Yep.
And beat Kansas City with a quarterback that he didn't trust and the quarterback didn't trust him. Like, I don't get that. Whereas the Raiders don't have a quarterback. Their offensive line is not as good. They're not as good in the offensive line as Denver is. I'm not saying Denver's an elite offensive line, but the Raiders have issues. They're a team full of centers. They really are, whether it's Andre James, Dylan Parham, the kid they drafted from Oregon. All of them are better centers than they are guards. They're going to start Cody Whitehair at left guard. And whether Colton Miller comes back, they're not going to run the ball. Like, I just think, to me, this 3-1 finish by the Raiders, where they didn't turn the ball over the final 4 weeks of the season and their defense was playing at a much higher level, I think it's going to be hard to duplicate.
Yeah, I want to talk about all of these rookie quarterbacks because we're going to get 3 of them that are starting that were picked in those first 12 picks. 6 guys were taken in the first 12. It's going to be 3 of them: Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix. Of those 3 guys, and then when you talk about how they're set up with the team around them, and then the offensive minds that are helping develop them and coach them. So for Caleb Williams, we have Shane Waldron, who comes over from Seattle as the OC. For Jaden Daniels, it's our guy Cliff Kingsbury, who's now the OC in Washington. And for Bo Nix, it's going to be Sean Payton as the offensive mind to help develop him. Which of those 3 guys is best set up for success in their rookie season?
It's not even close. It's Bo Nix, because the head coach is calling it, and he's crafting the defense and the special teams around the quarterback. He's going to manage it. The other 2 are subcontractors. Look, Shane Waldron has to feed a monster. He's got a monster to feed in terms of the passing game. Got to get the ball to DJ Moore. Got to get the ball to Keenan Allen. Got to get the ball to Rome Odunze. Got to get the ball to Cole Kmet. Got to get the ball to Swift. And an offensive line that is going to struggle to run block. They're going to be an 11 personnel team. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. It's going to ask him to do a lot of things that are very challenging at the line of scrimmage for a young player. And it's going to create some confusion, and it's going to be a problem. Now, I think Caleb Williams will be a good player, but until the Bears improve the Bears are a Madden team. They're really good at skill. They just don't have an offensive line. They play in Chicago, cold weather, rain, sleet, snow.
Wind.
They're not built for that. They really aren't. They're not physical enough up front in either line. So, and I think I said this on the show yesterday, there's almost a Bill Adie tax. Bill Adie, our president of the company of VEASAN here, he's a huge Chicago Bear fan. And there's always a tax for that. Like, for example, Tennessee goes into Chicago. Tennessee's a 4.5-point dog to a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
How many times in your lifetime betting have you seen a rookie quarterback at favorite by more than a field goal?
The only time that ever comes back to me is Trevor Lawrence on the road week 1 against the Texans, and the Texans beat the hell out of Jacksonville in that game.
Right. Okay. So, all right, I could see him being a 3-point. I could see him being a field goal, right? I could see it being 2.5, 3. But that 4.5 is Bears money coming in, and that's the tax. Bear fans are incredible. They are really passionate, and they put their money where their mouth is. And I think ultimately that you're paying a tax when you're betting Bear games. You really are, until you see when the obvious becomes in play.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely playing the tax here, and there's so much expectations for Caleb Williams. But what do you think about happens with Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury in Washington? Because that's a team that I think folks are starting to not really buy into, but maybe think that something could be brewing here, just given the fact that it's no longer Rivera and Bieniemy. Now it's Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, and Jaden Daniels, in the snippets that we've seen, has at least looked pretty good, and obviously won the Heisman Trophy last year at LSU.
Well, I think he's got a little bit of what C.J. Stroud does really well. Throw the ball outside the numbers. I think he will run it more than C.J. ran it. I think they have to protect the quarterback. They can't let him out there on an island. He's going to look at one look and go. And I think Cliff knows that. And this is not a knock on the kid, but I think they're going to have to run the ball. Their line isn't very good either now. Let's be clear. I think they're going to be much improved defensively because they'll be for lack of a better term, coordinated defensively. Last year, they were not coordinated defensively, nor were they coordinated offensively. I mean, what Eric Bieniemy did to the Washington team last year and calling all those passes was malpractice. It really was. It really was. I mean, he got Sam Howell killed, and Sam Howell's going to have to weather that storm for a while moving forward. But I think to me, this Washington team will play hard because that's Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
They'll be energized. They'll get that first-year coach bump. There's no question. And Daniels' speed, his athleticism will take over, but he's going to have to be careful. Remember, there's only one quarterback last year that stayed healthy the entire season. That was the smallest one in Bryce Young. So all these guys have a propensity to get hurt. And that's what concerns you if you're Chicago. Tyson Bagent is the only backup quarterback you have on your team. I know you signed Brett Rippon too, but come on now. You know, if Williams gets hit and sprains an ankle for 6 weeks, what do you think the Bears' record's going to be?
Yeah, I'll put that one down for 0-6. I'll go out on the limb and say that. But there could be something brewing maybe in New England, because we've all thought that, assuming that Jacoby Brissett was going to be the week 1 starter, but on Wednesday, we saw that Drake May saw his first team reps with the Patriots starting offense during both walkthroughs and the 11-on-11 periods. Is there anything that we should read into there to where maybe Drake May could be a surprise week 1 guy and be that 4th guy from this rookie class to start on the opening day?
I think they want Drake May to be the starter. I think they feel like he can do it, and I think it's wrong. I think they should start Brissett. They're not good enough up front. I think there's a propensity here to really damage the kid if he gets hit too much. You know, you open him up against the Bengals blitzes and all that stuff. I think it's going to be a challenge. They don't have a good enough run game to kind of handle the quarterback. They're going to be playing from behind. They did lose one of the best defensive coaches. I know he was selling pizzas in South Boston for most of his 24 years there. I understand that. But, you know, there was probably one day a week he came in to help with the defense, you know, when Jonathan Kraft wasn't running it. So I think, to me, I think they're panicking a little bit. Look, I think the Patriots are like that old saying we had in the Daily Coach. When you have 3 people in charge of taking a feed in the dog starves. Well, I think the Patriots have 3 people in charge of taking care of their team, and the team's going to starve.
Head coach Gerard Mayo said on Wednesday that 100% I think he's ready to run the huddle. So Gerard Mayo maybe giving some of an endorsement for Drake May. We still have to see how the 3rd preseason game goes before we ultimately get a decision. Let's take a quick break, though. This is the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
Welcome back here on the GM Shuffle, and joining us now, as we've done throughout the summer, Michael, we always have cool people on to talk about the National Football League, the sport that we know and love. And joining us on today's podcast, NFL correspondent at Stadium Network and host of the Wondery podcast, The Offensive Line, Annie Agar, joins the GM Shuffle this upcoming NFL season. Check out Wondery's newest football podcast, The Offensive Line with Annie Agar. Watch The Offensive Line now on YouTube and listen on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Annie, thanks for hanging out with us today. How we doing?
Of course. Thanks for having me, you guys. Happy to be on.
Well, we're excited to have you, Andy. So first of all, I want to talk about the new pod, but I want to make sure that we're still going to have our weekly meetings, because I look forward to those every week. I don't know how the hell you tape those. I'm very impressed with your wardrobe when you do those. They're funny as hell, you know. But I want to know, are we still going to have our weekly coaching session meetings?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And that is the number one comment that I've gotten every time I post about the pod. It's, will the meetings still happen? And 100% they will. And I made sure to work my schedule around shooting the pod, the research for the pod, based around the meetings. So the meetings will happen. We'll still have those weekly roasts, and this will just be an elaboration, I guess, on that, you know.
How long does it take you to do those? And I mean, do you get tired of changing clothes, or do you just do like you film one person and then you go to the next one or the next one and the next one?
Yeah, that's another question I get asked a lot too. It takes a while to film. It's a lot of, because I can make jokes that I think are funny based on, you know, my fandom, but I really want to tap into each fan base's inside joke. So I want to reference, you know, the terrible trade they made years ago or the draft that still haunts them and stuff like that. So I spend a lot of time researching what each fan base felt about those games that weekend. So that takes a a lot of time. And then the actual video, I think, takes about 3 to 4 hours to shoot because I'm making all those changes and I'm trying to look the right direction in each one because I want, the NFL to be looking at, the Panthers when they talk. And then it's a lot of logistics, I guess, in the filming of it. But I usually try to shoot each segment separately. So it does seem like I'm having a conversation, because if I go through and film all of one person, it might have the wrong inflection or something like that. So it's definitely a process, but I'm hopefully honed in on it a little bit more so I can turn off those videos hopefully pretty quick.
Well, I mean, you don't just do the NFL stuff. You also did college as well. Like, so do you have like the jerseys of, I'm assuming all 32 NFL teams, but also do you have like for every like Power 5 or Power 4 college football team? Like what is, I'm assuming your closet is just jersey all the way through.
I have a full, and we thought about putting this in the backdrop of the podcast, because I have so many, a full rack of just jerseys. And then the NFL got smart and NFL Shop started sending me a bunch of shirts and jerseys. And then all the fans would tag their teams when I, have like a taped on Jets logo falling off. And they're like, well, this can't represent the Jets. We need an actual jersey. So then the team started sending me jerseys. Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. So yes, I have an overflowing studio room of all the jerseys and shirts. And then for colleges, the first, like you said, the first video was a Big Ten video, which is really what kind of started this whole thing. And I had, I'm an Ohio State fan. And then my whole family are Michigan State fans. And then I have extended family who are Michigan fans. So I had a lot of that gear already. So the Big Ten, pretty much I have it covered. The other conferences, though, was a little bit more difficult. So we stuck with the taped on logos for those.
Well, talk about the new pod. What can we expect besides your humor and your great ability to give shots off? I mean, I think you were somewhere where you have this great ability to bring back ideas that have happened, who dropped the ball, all that stuff. So talk about the new pod and what's going to happen here. Because at the end of the day, Andy, you're a comedian at heart, right? I mean, you love sports. You're a Packer fan. You're Ohio State fan. You are, I mean, I don't know what your dad happened in the house, but for some reason you truly were the contrarian of that household, weren't you?
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think a lot of, which is so funny when we get into sports, and I think Femi talked about it before I came on air, we're all fans. Like, that's why we got into this industry. And I think so many people forget, because sometimes when you're doing broadcasting, you can't show fandom, you can't show bias. So my voice, I want fans to be able to relate, because I'm at heart a fan, and I'm going to make fun of the Bears and the Lions because I hate them. Like that's just how we grew up. And my dad, speaking of my dad, he's very dry sense of humor, very sarcastic. Like, our love language was taking shots at each other in my family. So I think that just kind of comes through with my videos. And I think the podcast what I'm hoping is the podcast will be more of that, but I'll have people on every week. So they'll really get a feel for, how I talk in person. And it's a little bit more conversational than the videos, because the videos I'm playing a character. So these will be more, I'm talking to the fans and showing them, hey, I don't just make up this personality in my videos. I actually roast people a lot, and that's kind of my love language. But I'm also, I try to be nice to people, obviously. So I think that's where it's a little unassuming, because one second I'll be complimenting, a former player, and then the next I'll be like, well, yeah, but that play sucked, or something like that. And hopefully in a clever way. So it'll still have the same tone that the videos do, and the same kind of writing. And because, like I said, I still script all the videos myself. So it'll hopefully be more genuine me that comes out in the podcast, a little bit more conversational, but still very in line with the videos.
Well, you mentioned that you're a Packers fan and that you hate the Bears, you hate the Lions. I'm assuming you hate the Vikings as well. As a Packers fan, growing up, I mean, like, you've seen Favre, you've seen Rodgers. The Packers, you almost can just pencil them into winning the division. How strange is it now, after what we saw last year, the Detroit Lions winning the North on the doorstep of maybe going to the Super Bowl? They're the favorites once again this season. People are talking about them as a potential Super Bowl winning team. How strange does this feel like we're just living in the simulation that the Detroit Lions have now surpassed the team that you grew up rooting for?
It is wild. It's really crazy, because the NFC North now is like the division to beat, it seems like, other than Minnesota. But when my brother growing up, huge Lions fan, like I said, my family all Lions fans. And it is really weird for me, because I made that choice at a very young age to be a Packers fan. There's a whole story behind it I can explain maybe another time. But I made that decision. So it wasn't, a fair weather fan choice. My brother basically said, you're going to either be on my team or I'm going to hate you for the rest of your life. So made the choice, became a Packers fan, and it seemed like the right choice for, these many, many years. Mm-hmm. And now it is crazy to have Detroit with probably the best O-line in the NFL, great D-line, and I hear it every day from my brother. Picked up DJ Reader. Now they're think they're gonna have a repeat season, even though they have a terribly tough schedule. It's really crazy to hear how my family's dynamic has changed, because that's all we do is we don't really talk about our feelings around my family. We just talk about sports. So their whole personality is like positive and looking forward to football season, which is crazy for me. And I'm a little worried. I got to admit, as a Packers fan, I'm a little worried for this division. I felt more confident in the past, but yeah, there's a little competition there.
Well, I think the biggest question I have to ask you is my cousin, we call him Big Daddy Vince Lombardi, no relation to the coach, but he is also a Packer fan. And obviously he's a Packer fan because of his name. And he was born the same year that Lombardi went to Green Bay. So he calls Matt LaFleur LaFuck, which has become a famous name here on the Shuffle podcast, which has kind of stuck. But what drives him crazy, and I want to know your feelings on this, because you have a little bit of a fashion designer flair to you. What do you think of Matt LaFleur's haircuts every week?
Let me tell you what, if he paid more attention to putting Aaron Jones on the goal line instead of his haircut, we'd be in a very different situation last year than we were. That man, and I tried to love him. I really did. And maybe it was my hatred for Joe Barry that took away hatred for him, because I think he is a really good coach. I mean, the whole Shanahan system thing, like he's a very smart coach, came down from, that coaching ladder like everybody else did. And I fully trust him. But the haircuts, I just don't want the emphasis to be on looks here. And that's where we're trending. I don't know if you guys seen that meme of it's Ryan Gosling next to Steve Carell from one of those movies. And Steve Carell looks terrible. He's in a terrible outfit. And then it's Ryan Gosling in this tight fitted shirt, and he looks he looks really sharp. And people are like, that's the difference between the head coach and the DC or something, or the OC and the DC, because they're not worried about what they look like. All these head coaches now are got like the Sean McVay, like the Kyle Shanahan, they're looking sharp, they're fit. Give me the Andy Reid that's going to go back-to-back Super Bowls, and he's just out there to coach. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. We're just grinding. We're grinding tape. We're trying to game plan. We're not working out. We're not going to tailors to get our suits fitted.
Stop getting facials and go coach. Golly.
Yeah, I agree, Annie. The Bill Belichick look, when he looks like he hasn't showered for 4 days. I like that look. He's
That's
all in.
That's the coach I want. That is the coach I want. He's been in a film room for days. He hasn't seen a mirror in a week. Yeah, give me that coach.
So obviously you're big on the Packers, but we got a couple minutes left. I want to get your thoughts on some of these other teams. Who else do you think could have big seasons that maybe some other, people who talk about the sport don't really love? Like, who can be the underrated sleeper teams this upcoming season? Kind of like how your Packers were last year.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder of that. I will say there's one that I'm gonna die on this hill probably. The Commanders. I think the Commanders might win that division, and that sounds absolutely crazy to say. But we talked about the issues in Philadelphia. There's something going on with Sirianni and Jalen. I don't know if they've worked it out this offseason, but when Jalen comes out and says we know there's something going on there. And then the Giants obviously suck. Like, lovely neighbors. I hope he has a great season, but you just can't fix Daniel Jones. And then the Cowboys, if they sign their top guys, then great. But I don't even know if they'll get those deals done. And I think Washington, they are totally different. And I hated on Washington. You guys could go see. They were like the butt of a lot of the jokes in the other videos last year. Sure. But I think they're a totally different franchise now. They just fixed their field is the only thing that they have left to change, because they have a new GM, new head coach, new OC, Cliff Kingsbury, talk about good looks as a coach. He's bringing something to Washington, D.C. that they might not have had before, and it's a different look. And I think Jaden Daniels is going to have a great season, and so I'm very excited for Washington, which I never thought I would say before. So that's my little, I guess, sleeper team that I would look for. But yeah, don't quote me on it, because if you guys saw my betting slip, usually you would not take that to heart.
We have about a minute to go. Tell me what fan base gives you the hardest time when you make fun of them. Like, for me, the Giant
Cowboys
fans are all over my ass. I mean, the Giant fans kill me, even though they're 7-31 against the Eagles and the Cowboys, but they kill me. What fan base gets you the hardest time?
The Giants are pretty bad too, because they beat us 2 years in a row, which is crazy. They should not have won those games. So us meaning the Packers. But I think Cowboys fans are just brutal. They are If I don't include them in the video, they're mad that I didn't include them. If I do include them, they're like, "Oh, you can't say that. You just hate us because of the whole Dez catch." I'm like, "You guys pick a side and stick to it. I can't stand them."
Annie, I am a Cowboys fan. Yeah, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I can attest to this. We're actually awful. But also,
great. I force insult to one fan base.
Of course, before we let you go, Dez did catch that damn ball. We're not going to go ahead and rehash it. He caught the ball.
Oh, no. We don't have enough time for that segment.
But make sure you check out the offensive line with Annie Agar. Annie, we appreciate it. Be well.
Thank you so much, you guys.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
All right, let's pick back up the conversation about Drake May and the New England Patriots. Now, Michael, you said that the Patriots want to start Drake May. Is that because they haven't seen enough from Jacoby Brissett as he can be a competent bridge quarterback to start week one? Or is it maybe Drake May is starting to show a little bit more than what he showed early in training camp, and maybe he's giving them a little bit more confidence in starting him?
I think it's a combination of both, but I'm going to let you in on a really deep secret here, Femi, a deep secret.
Please do.
The Patriots are not going to go to the Super Bowl this year. I'm going to let you in on that. I know that's shocking.
Yeah. Can we get the breaking
I know
news
you're
stinger?
shocked.
Yeah.
Take a breath, take a deep breath, hold yourself down. But I think there's a couple things going. The momentum, watching Bo Nix play so well, knowing Jaden Daniels is going to start, knowing that Caleb Williams is going to start. I think they're sitting there saying, what are we waiting for? Well, I think, look, their skill positions are still suspect at the Patriots. What worries me most about putting Drake May in the game too early is their offensive line, particularly at the tackle position, is not good at all. And, one thing about playing, Sam Ehlinger plays great every preseason. He can't play during the regular season. So you can get fooled into thinking a guy's really making progress based on how he's played. Now, I think the Bo Nix thing is completely different because Bo Nix is being coached by the head coach. So that's completely different. Mayo is just evaluating. And my point about when you put three people in charge of feeding a dog, the dog starves, is because that's exactly what's going on. You've got a lot of people inside that organization making decisions on the future of the quarterback. Whether it's Jonathan Kraft, Robin Glazer, Gerard Mayo, Elliott Wolf. There's a lot of people in there. And I'm not sure, and Alex Van Pelt. Now you got five. As we all know, there's no committees. There's no monuments dedicated to committee anywhere. So I just think, to me, that what I've seen over my career, and this isn't a knock on New England, this is a knock on every team, including teams I've been with, is when you don't have a really good plan for the quarterback and stick to the plan, you could affect the quarterback's progress. And I would stick to the plan. And here's why. Because say May goes in there and the first 4 games he just doesn't play well. Now you've got to bench him and put Brissett in the game. And now you've kind of demoralized the kid, got him off, you got the media back there. You got to play all these into effect. So what I would do is I play Brissett. I'm not going to the Super Bowl, so let me play Brissett as much as I can. And then when it's the moment's right, which it could be week 3, it could be week 4, go to May and knowing you're not going back to Brissett. But what you don't want to do is go May to Brissett. And then you don't want to get May hurt. You don't want to have him lose his confidence. Look, why not just play it out? Let Brissett go, get the team ready, let May learn, get the first pick in the draft, pull a Caleb, end up trading down 3 or 4 spots, get a boatload of picks so somebody could pick Beck or Sanders and really build your team. But I would not put May in the game until I felt that offensive line could handle all the things. And I think that's really important. So for me, this is a long lens view. It's not a short lens view. And that's where I think when you don't have one person in charge to second order think, you get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Patriots schedule right now to see if there could be like sort of a sweet spot, quote unquote, to start Drake May. And their bye week is not until week 14, so I don't think they want to wait that long. But sometimes that might be the best thing to do is just wait and let him play the final 4 games of the regular season. So week 1 at the Bengals, then you're hosting Seattle, then it's a Thursday night game at the Jets. I don't think we're going to see him prior to that, just as it stands right now. You have the extra ramp up to a game at San Francisco. Do you want to put him out there in San Francisco with that shaky O-line? fine and Nick Bosa's breathing down his neck, I don't think you should do that, but I'm not running the New England Patriots. After that game, you have 2 home games against the Dolphins and the Texans. So for me, at least, I wouldn't even entertain starting him until October if I was running the Patriots. But this is something that probably should have been the conversation in the draft room when they were looking to draft Drake May about, hey, like, this is a guy that's a little bit green. He's a little raw. He needs a little bit more seasoning. Let's go ahead and put him on this development plan to where at some point in the regular season we want to play him, but it doesn't necessarily have to be week 1 unless he absolutely wows us, which, at least from where we're standing, doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, I agree. I think, to me, there's no rush. Like, take a 24-month plan and put it in place.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if the New England Patriots opt to do that, but I'm sure there's going to be the public pressure. Like, let's say they get drilled by Cincinnati 35-0 week 1. I'm sure the fans are saying, let's just play Drake May. Let's play Drake May.
Well, they're going to get – Drake May's going to lose – he's going to lose 35-0 too, because
exactly.
The game is – and I know from all the things that you've studied, the preseasons, especially preseason highlights, preseason is a false narrative. It's a very false narrative. And so you don't lure into it. Let Brissett, you paid him $8 million this year. Let him take it. Now, I'm not saying let him go all the way, but there's a point where, you've watched enough in practice. Okay, now it's time. But see, somebody's got to decide that. Somebody has to see it, somebody has to know it, and somebody has to act on it. And when you have a committee, who's that going to be? Is Robin Glazer watching practice tape? Is Jonathan Kraft watching all this stuff? They're all involved. They could say they're not, which they will, but they're all involved.
Maybe we'll just vote on it. Majority wins. If it's a 5-person
majority wins.
Yeah, maybe we'll just go ahead.
But we have, but speaking of majority, this is a sad day for me, Femi. I've got to say, you have an announcement to make to our GM Shuffle fan base that disappoints me, but it certainly helps you. And so please share with our audience today what your future holds.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe we can start playing the Journey "Don't Stop Believing" or something like that right now. But this is going to be my last podcast with the GM Shuffle. It's very abrupt. I realize that with football season coming up here, but what a ride it has been these last 2.5 years, Michael, to be alongside with you doing this. It's been quite some time. March 2022 is when we started this bad boy, this version of the GM Shuffle podcast, and I just want to kind of say thank you to everyone involved, not just the people on the podcast, obviously the listeners and our viewers on the YouTube feed as well. They have embraced me from day one. The friendly direct messages, all of the comments and everything, people saying, hey, we love having you on the podcast, that it did not go unnoticed. I know I'm not able to reply to every single one of those DMs or tweets or YouTube comments, but I really do appreciate all of the support. Back in March of 2022 when I took over, like the GM Shuffle is sort of this family. Adnan Virk, the host that I went ahead and succeeded there and was the host before me, he reached out to me. He didn't have to do any of that. Adnan didn't have to do that. I've never met Adnan. I don't really know Adnan other than our Twitter interactions, but he reached out to me and said, hey, anything you need, just feel free to reach out. And that kind of shows you what kind of family this is. Tate Frazier, who also has hosted this GM Shuffle and GM Street and all those things, like he have reached out to me as well. So I think thank you to those guys as well as VSiN and DraftKings for trusting in me to do this. Michael, thank you to you. I can't even thank you enough because you took a chance on me to host. Because like I said, it's Adnan Virk, it's Tate Frazier. There was you and Nick Wright with Make Me Smarter, all these things that you guys have done together in the past. And we had only worked together like a couple of shows, me filling in on a Lombardi line, but you trusted me to handle the GM Shuffle with care, and I really do appreciate it. It's honestly been one of the more rewarding experiences in my career doing this podcast. I'm going to miss the hell out of it. I tried to fight like hell to be able to still host this podcast going on to my new opportunity, but unfortunately it just didn't work out. But I'm definitely going to miss doing this with you and all the things. And I do want to get into some of the fun stuff that we had along the way and everything like that. But I wanted to say thank you to you because without you kind of giving me the blessing, I'm not doing this podcast and I'm not being able to do what has been really one of the more rewarding experiences throughout my career. So thank you, Michael. I really do appreciate it. And I have some other people to thank as well, but I just wanted to say that off the top.
Well, and certainly you have to take the time to do that. I appreciate you tremendously. You did a tremendous job, and you studied The Sopranos, which is a prerequisite to get on this podcast. So
took me a little bit of time, but we did it.
Appreciate that, and you steer the ship the best you can, and that's what you need to do. And we appreciate you. And I've really enjoyed working with you over these 2.5 years. And I got to learn about Twitter Femi. I got to learn about 4-game Femi. And the chemistry that we've been able to develop over time has been great. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck. I mean, I feel like the GM Shuffle will always embrace you as part of the family, like Adnan and certainly like the great Tate Frazier. So we're excited for your future, Femi.
No, thank you.
And I learned about the ones and the twos. I had no idea what the hell the ones and the twos were.
A whole new audience found out about the ones and the twos. Speaking of which, thank you to the two producers that we've had during this version of it. Stephen Bond, our Bills Mafia buddy. Thank you to him. He was our first producer. Then, of course, our current producer, Elliot Bowman, our resident For the Shoe Indianapolis Colts fan. What can we say more about Elliot? I mean, the guy, he works his ass off, and he's always looking for ways to try to improve the podcast. And I trust you, Michael. I trust you, Elliot, to keep this thing moving as we continue along with the GM Shuffle. But I'm going to miss the hell out of you guys and everything that we've done. I mean, think about all the stuff that we did. We had literature and leadership. We've done the blue chips, red chip stuff. The Monday after pods for the regular season are always my favorite, because that's when we're both kind of firing at all cylinders and we're just reacting to what we saw on those Sundays. But the draft specials, Super Bowl radio row in Vegas, we had a lot of fun, Michael. It was a hell of a time, and I'm going to miss it.
I thought our draft show was really the culmination of us working together for 2+ years, and I thought that was a great show, and you did a tremendous job with that, and we had a lot of fun on draft day. That was different. And look, the GM Shuffle is always going to be about honesty. We're going to not have non-filters. We're going to say what we think. We're not going to be political in the sense of protect this source or protect that source. Mm-hmm. So, and I appreciate you embracing that mantra that I believe in, that I think fans deserve to know the truth about the game, at least according to what we see. Yep. We're going to be wrong, obviously.
Yeah, it happens.
I really appreciate your honesty and your continuation of what we believe people need to hear in podcasts, because all the podcasts are regurgitation, and I think we need to always, and you enhance this, is to keep it different than everyone else.
100%, and that's why I've loved doing this thing, because I'm a football junkie. By nature, I'm a football junkie. I've been watching since I was 5 years old, and doing this podcast, honestly, I always said that when I joined broadcasting, I want to do something that's just football associated and just football direct, and this is what this podcast has been for me. So I really do appreciate the opportunity and doing everything. And for all the listeners and the viewers out there, I appreciate the hell out of you guys. As for what's next, you will find out Friday morning. We're taping this, of course, on a Thursday, as we always do. Just check out the Twitter feed. It'll be out there Friday morning. I'll let everybody know what I'm doing next, but I'll forever be a fan of the GM Shuffle and this podcast, because like we said, once you're in the shuffle, you're like family, like Adnan and Tate. You're always family.
It's like working for the Raiders. Once a Raider, always a Raider. Once a shuffler, always a shuffler. So we appreciate you, Femi. Thank you so much, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And I'm gonna keep track of Twitter, Femi, and I'm gonna keep track of 4-game Femi.
Oh, we'll have now we have the ultimate multi-view with YouTube. You can pick which games you want to do. Sunday tickets are gonna be here when the regular season starts. I absolutely cannot wait for it. We'll have the 8 games going in the early window. It's gonna be a hell of a time. So we'll be firing away on those Sundays. But as always, I say it after the end of every podcast, but I really do appreciate this. As always, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. The YouTube audience, keep commenting, keep liking. Maybe I'll start commenting and liking now that I'm no longer hosting this bad boy, but I'll definitely be supporting this thing from afar, Michael. But this has been one hell of a ride, buddy. I'm going to miss you, man. But obviously, we have our phone number. We can text back and forth during the regular season, and I'm sure we will do just that.
Yeah, you'll keep me posted on what you and Jerry talked about. Thank you, Femi.